Welcome to the latest episode of Trojans Wired, the podcast, which is an in-house production of the website Trojans Wire. We are part of the College Wire Network. So USC beats UNC Greensboro in round one. No drama as expected, but plenty to sort through. And Cece Clay, as we bring you back onto our show, the obvious first point, 2 full weeks off. And that obviously opened the door for some rust, but it also opened the door as well for some positive developments. Lindsey Gottlieb had 2 weeks of practice. The team was able to get some much needed rest, kind of reset, refocus, and that led to some good things. But the first thing is the rust. And you and I have talked a lot on this show. Missed layups. Just make your layups. Just finish the close in shots. And that might have been the foremost area where the rust, just that little lack of fluidity and precision, entered the picture against UNCG. So your evaluation of the rust element and how easily you think USC can shrug off that rust going into the round of 32 on Monday night against Mississippi State.
They don't have a choice. They better because Mississippi State is coming. You know what I mean? And even though Mississippi State placed seventh in their conference, that USC has a target on their back. But I regress. I'll talk about this game first. Yeah, the rest in the first quarter was evident. Not only missed layups, but errant passes. Just I think that they were so excited. It was almost like overexcited to get out on the court and play. And you could just tell by the way they were just pressing and rushing and doing everything at triple speed than they normally do, right? So I think once they settled in the second quarter, they got back to being themselves. And it looked like to me in the first quarter, they were actually trying new stuff, new plays, because Rayo was trying to tell people where to go and so on and so forth. So I was like, I wonder if that's a new play that they're testing out, for whatever reason. But yeah, it was ugly that first quarter. But I tell you what, we have to give flowers to UNCG because they came in as a number one ranked scoring defense in the nation, and I know they play in a weaker mid major, and I talked about it on my YouTube the day before or whatever. But it showed that they knew how to play some defense. But so do we. That's the thing. Everybody talks about how USC has a good defense, but they don't understand how good that defense is until they're on the floor playing against us.
Yeah,
I mean, holding a team to what they shot, what was it? They shot like 15% or
13%,
something like that.
13%, 7 of 54. Absolutely mind-blowing. Seven made field goals
It's
in
crazy.
40 minutes and never scored, did
Yeah,
not score 10 points in any of the 4 quarters. Just an absolutely amazing display by Beth Burns' defense. And
they
25 points.
yeah,
That's a record. That's a record low.
their 2 point percentage was to break it down. Their 2 point percentage was 8.3%. Zero in the zero percentile of all of the NCAA, right? Just the worst you could possibly be. And then their 3 point percentage was 22%. And so yeah, just an awesome display of rim protection and shutting them down. They just can do anything. And just so you know, um, holding them to 25 points, if you didn't see this on ESPN or over social media or whatever, holding them to 25 points is history setting, right? They are the only team in the NCAA to hold a team to 25 points. Well, they're tied. And guess who they're tied with?
UConn.
UConn.
Yeah. UConn held
UConn held.
Arkansas State to 34. So, the measuring sticks are already out, as you could well.
Go figure. It was no, it was Utah. It
Imagine.
was another team that held a team of 25 yesterday, actually. Um, it wasn't South Carolina. Maybe it was Duke, but they actually tied with somebody yesterday, if I'm correct. Maybe I'm not, but I know that they're tied with somebody. Maybe you're right. Maybe it was UConn, but
Oh,
that just
okay.
blew me away. I was just like, go figure. But yeah, hopefully they'll get rid of some of the some of the rust that they have to be ready for Mississippi State. I think one of the problems DMing with a friend of mine, I said one of the problems I think USC has is when they're on the court with a team that is not as good as them or can really be troublesome, they just look bored. and so that causes slippage, right? They look bored because they're not being challenged. And so I think they start playing down to the level of the team that they're playing against a little bit because especially Juju. Juju wants to compete, and they tried to double her, they tried to throw a hedge out at her, but it just wasn't working, So Kennedy Smith is in her head right now, I think, with her shooting. And if you guys watched the press conferences in the pregame press conference, Lindsey Gottlieb had mentioned that Kennedy is a perfectionist. And it's evident. You can tell that she's a perfectionist because, perfectionists, if they can't perfect their craft, it gets in their head. And then that stops them from even perfecting their craft even more. And that's exactly what's happening with Kennedy right now with her shooting. Her defense is fine, but she's such a perfectionist and she gets on herself for the littlest things that it's affecting her shooting now. And she's got to get out of that. She's got to let it go.
So this leads me to what I think is a very important question for this USC team heading into round 2 against Mississippi State. Obviously, as a coach, you want to tell your players, hey, you play your game, don't do things that you don't ordinarily do. But that there always has to be a balance, right? That you don't want if shooters need to have confidence, but you can't shoot your way out of a game either. And there are always adjustments you can make. And so, if your perimeter shot's not falling, get to the hoop, post up, do different things. But of course, if you try to do different things, maybe that takes away the rhythm and the spacing of the offense as it normally is. So if you're Lindsey Gottlieb, how do you strike that balance in terms of telling your players, hey, stay confident, trust your game, but also make adjustments within the framework of the offense. What do you think is available for Kennedy Smith and anyone else who's struggling to shoot the ball right now?
With Kennedy Smith, one thing I noticed yesterday is Lindsay did post her up. Lindsay had a play called for her where she was posting down low and she got the ball and then she shot it and got fouled. So she was trying to get her into the mix of the game. I think that the biggest thing that Lindsay can do is what she's already doing and trying to tell Kennedy, you got to let it go, and just play and then keep within the framework of what they're trying to do. So she did try to post her up and she did try to get her open. A couple times Kennedy did drive to the basket. So that's all within the framework of what the team is trying to do. A lot of it is psychological and Kennedy's got to be able to address her own psychological blocks right now because of, she wants to be a perfectionist. So, I mean, you saw it with K9. K9 was on the bench for a couple games and she came in yesterday, and I think that during these 2 weeks off, it had, K9 had a chance to regroup and maybe center herself again and understand what's expected from her with conversations from the coaches and at practice. And as you can see, she was the first one off the bench yesterday and she played really well yesterday. So I think it's just a matter of a mindset and understanding your role and playing within that role. And if you're not doing, like you said, one thing that you can do well, if it's not going so well, what can you do well to help this team and do that? But the other thing is these players are so young, they're freshmen. And when they were in high school, they didn't have to worry about that. They would just go play, and do what they do. And now they're understanding that college ball is it's a whole different mental aspect to college ball other than just going out there and playing. So with these kids being so young, they have to learn, and they're either going to learn or they're not, so I think you're seeing K9 wanting to learn and get better at the things that she's being asked to do. And she came in yesterday and played some really, really good minutes for the team.
Would you agree with the assertion that Heckle playing well was the best thing to come out of this game, or was there something else you'd identify as well as a significant step forward for this team at the start of March Madness?
I think the K9 narrative is really good because now we can go 9 deep, right? Because Malia came in and played very well too. And if you listen to the post-game presser from Purcell, the one thing that he said that struck me was he kept texting his coaches, hitting up his other coaches saying, this team can go 9 deep and they got McDonald's All-Americans coming off the bench that can play some ball, so um, that goes to show you right there with Avery and with K9 and Malia coming off the bench, how all of them it's going to take this whole team to get as far as we want to get in the tournament. So, but yeah, K9 coming off the bench and playing her role. And I just want to emphasize playing her role. She wasn't too aggressive. She wasn't the K9 that, hey, I'm gonna get the ball and I'm not gonna pass it. I'm gonna go to the bucket. She was the K9 that passed the ball and took her opportunities when she needed to, and then played hella good defense. You know what I mean? So she deserves her flowers. I think that's going to do a lot for her confidence. And I think if she continues to understand her role and play within her role and what the team is asking her to do, the team, as well as K9, will benefit in the long run.
It's worth saying with Heckle stepping up and Heckle and Samuels both being part of a deeper rotation. We remember last year at this time of year, Sweet 16 against Baylor, key difference in that game was Lindsey Gottlieb going to Kayla Williams in place
Yeah.
of Kayla Padilla. And it
Yeah, at
was
the Baylor
the
game.
bench depth in the
Yeah.
backcourt, which really turned that Baylor game, which was dicey, in USC's favor. So having those extra chess pieces on that bench to turn to, if one doesn't work, you can plug in the other. Really important this time of year. So that emphasizes the Kaylee Heckle story and the value to USC. All right, we
When
also
when
have to talk.
when
Go ahead.
when Kaylee Heckle was on the floor, the plus minus for the team was a plus 27. You know what I mean? So I mean, she did what she needed to do yesterday when she was on the court. And Avery Howell too. Avery Howell coming off the bench when she was on the floor, even though she didn't score like she normally does, the team was a plus 35 when she was on the court. So our bench players, even though they're not scoring tons of points, they're playing their roles, and that's such an important piece to, like I said, going on a deep run in this tournament.
Absolutely. So another player we have to talk about, Kiki Iriafen, very sluggish first half. Do you just chalk it up to rust, or was there anything extra that you would identify as perhaps a source of concern going into round two?
She said, no, you heard it in her voice when the question was asked about her post about the rest of the game, and she's like, yes, but again, you know, to me, Kiki, she brought out some old habits, right? And it seems like when she goes against bigger defenders, she doesn't square her shoulders up to the basket or shoot at an angle when she's around the rim, to hit the little box for it to go into the basket. Again, she rushes and she throws it up there, hoping that she can get the rebound, or I call it the angel effect, right? The Angel Reese kind of shot where she just presses and she rushes her shot because she doesn't want to get fouled instead of going up there with strength and squaring her shoulders up and getting fouled. You know what I mean? Now she did it a couple times where she did get fouled, but just in my opinion, she's just got to see the basket. You know what I mean? She's got to see the basket, and against bigger defenders, she's got to be strong and not rush her shot. She'll get fouled, or if she gets blocked, so she gets blocked. So what? She did get blocked in the first shot of the game, and I think that kind of just threw her mental all the way off when she was around the bucket and their center blocked her shot, and it just threw her off. But I think she'll be better against Mississippi State, but again, I don't know because Mississippi State, they have 6'6" and 6'5", so I don't know. But we'll talk about that in a little while. But yeah, Kiki, I think that she was a little nervous. NC tourney time, it's always nerves for everybody, especially the first round game. You're at home. You have an X on your back as a player and as a team, and so you want to go out there and do what you want to do to both help yourself and your team. She's got the WNBA draft coming up, so she wants to be good in these last games, but she just got to slow down a little bit and be her. She missed a lot of mid-range shots too, which is not Kiki like. Down the latter part of the games, the last 5 games, she was really good in the mid-range. So, we'll see.
So, Juju, Kiki, TVO, they've all been to the NCAA tournament many times, but this was the first time they've been on the court together in an NCAA tournament game. And you add that new element to, the freshmen getting their feet wet in the NCAA tournament. So talk about the game day experience you had, being able just as an observer, taking in the energy of the building, the energy of the team, and what you were seeing and feeling yourself, just as you were taking all of this in at the Galen Center.
Yeah, it was packed. You know what I mean? I mean, it was packed at the Galen. I got an opportunity to sit courtside, so you can really feel the energy from above. You can hear the crowd when you're sitting courtside, so that was a different experience for me. The team seemed very excited. The coaches seemed very on edge. You know what I mean? And it was just it was a great experience. You could tell that they were excited. They were smiling at the beginning of the game and ready to go, and until that whistle went off. So it was a fun experience for me.
Do you think that the players were a little bit jittery because they sensed how energized the coaches were, that maybe like just the whole locker room was just so keyed up that that kind of got in the way of the team settling into its half court offense in that first half?
Yeah, and I mean, they hadn't played in 2 weeks. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? They
yeah.
were itching to get on the court and play. So they were over anxious, and it just showed. They were over anxious to get on that court and play. I'm just glad that it happened against a team like UNCG and not like a Mississippi State. Like,
Yeah.
because
Go ahead.
I'm just going to talk about Cal, but we'll talk about that when we talk about Mississippi State.
Okay, I want to make one point here that, some writers were, understandably, because USC led by like 35 points, whatever, early fourth quarter. Some writers were saying, why is Juju playing? I have a direct answer for that. It's been 2 weeks. Like, you need to get some rhythm, some continuity for Juju, keep her in the flow of play after 2 weeks off. Like, that machine needs the gears to continue working. It's like, this is not a normal game situation in which you've played a game just 2 or 3 nights before. Juju needed that extra work. And also, specific to the point we've been talking about with rust and perhaps also being too excited, once that initial adrenaline wears off, then you're in a better position to perform normally as an athlete. You're not thinking about your nerves. You're just kind of in the game once you get 20, 25, 30 minutes into a game. So I'm sure Lindsey Gottlieb realized, hey, that initial buzz of adrenaline's off. Let me continue to play Juju so that I get her into a rhythm. Talk a little bit more about, that this game needing to give Juju and the starters some work. It was kind of the inverse of February when she did need to pull back on minutes for Juju because it was such a grind with the Big Ten travel schedule. That's not something that's being dealt with now. USC's been at home for the past 2 weeks. Your thoughts on how Lindsey Gottlieb handled the minutes and was playing Juju midway through the fourth quarter, even though the game was well in hand.
Yeah, I mean, you said it's about flow, right? And I think Lindsay sensed that they didn't have their flow, like they did at the end of the season, even after the or even during the loss for UCLA. They needed to get their flow back, and scrimmaging against practice players all the time isn't the same as a game flow. So in order to get this team's rhythm back, you have to play them, right? And then too, you got to remember, Kennedy, Avery, and K9, they're freshmen. Their nerves were like 100% plus, right? Especially Kinsey because she's a freshman. So I just think that Lindsay wanted to get all the jitters out, and but she said during the post game at halftime she had to remind them of what the goal is and what the scopes are within the team that they had to get back to and to focus on that in the second half, which they did. But yeah, I mean, there's some narratives out there that about Juju when she twisted her ankle and when she hurt her left pinky that Lindsay continued to play her when she was injured, and that's just BS. You know what I mean? I mean, Lindsay pulled Juju out with like 6:45 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. That's probably the least amount of minutes Juju have played since the Wisconsin game. You know what I mean? When she pulled Juju out early in that game. And it wasn't, I watched Lindsay when Juju came from the tunnel back to the chair after she had dinged her ankle. Lindsay looked at her and said, "Are you good?" And Juju gave the thumbs up. I'm good. But so she still sat her the rest of the third quarter. And then she went and checked in the fourth, and she only played 3.5 minutes. So this narrative that I don't know, man. People are just they just got to find drama to talk about. So Juju, I'm sure that Juju wouldn't go back in a game that they were winning this much if she was hurt. Juju's Juju's 19 years old. She's a smart player. She knows, whether or not she's hurt or not. So I just thought that narrative was kind of funky. And yeah, they got to shake out the cobwebs because from here on out, it's nothing but quad one games that they're playing. So they got to be ready.
All right, so we're going to talk about the USC Mississippi State matchup in a little bit, but before we do that, Cece, let's just talk about the game you saw in Galen, that second game after USC finished its win. We had Mississippi State beating Cal. Let's just look at that game, not focusing on USC yet, but just what you saw in that Mississippi State Cal game, like your scouting report perhaps on Mississippi State based on what it did in beating Cal.
Honestly, if you want my honest opinion, I don't think Mississippi beat Cal. I think Cal beat Cal. Cal came out very nervous. You could tell that they were nervous. They talked about it in the press conference how nervous they were. And they didn't play their game. And it was a game of two different styles, right? It was a game of Cal, who's a 3-point shooting team, against Mississippi, who likes to dribble drive and kind of run a little bit. But but Cal, they rely on their 3-point shooting, and they just shot the ball terribly. They couldn't even get into rhythm. Was part of that because of Mississippi State's defense? Maybe, but I think a lot of it was Cal not settling in and doing what they need to do to win the game. If Cal had hit their 3-point shots, and we always say that's a big if, they would have won that game. So I don't know. I just think Cal beat themselves in that game. Would I like to see a Cal USC matchup? Yeah, more so than I saw what your tweet, but them playing Cal, I think that it would have been a game of, I mean, a chess, right? Because you have two coaches that know each other and they know each other's games very well. But I think that USC playing Cal would have been a fun game. I think Mississippi State is going to pose some challenges for SC, even though SC is ranked number one and finished, one in the conference, and Mississippi State finished seventh in their conference. They're going to pose some challenges.
Yeah, Cal 13 for 52. You can do the math there. That's 1 out of 4. That's 25%. And Cal with 24 turnovers. It's really hard to imagine any team playing worse than Cal did
Yeah.
against Mississippi State. 59-46, the final. All right, so now let's talk about USC versus Mississippi State. And I think the first question on a lot of people's minds, given what they saw from Mississippi State, is this going to be a rock fight? Is this going to be just a street fight played in the 50s, low 60s? What does USC need to do to solve a Mississippi State defense, which was very, very effective against Cal?
I think a lot of that was Cal, not playing to their game. I think Mississippi State, they play good defense. I don't think their defense is that great. Are they going to throw doubles at Juju? Again, it's what are we going to do to counter their doubles and their hedges? And can other players step up, right? Because Juju, if you watched Juju yesterday, to me, it seems like she's been working on passing out of the double team. Because yesterday when she got doubled, she backed off and then went right around the double team a couple times. So it seems like she's been practicing or trying to get herself better at working out of the doubles. Now, the one thing that I'm afraid of with Mississippi State is, again, they got two bigs. They're one big is 6'6" that they start, and she's very athletic. She's a good big. And then they have a 6'5" that comes off the bench. So Clarice, I would imagine Clarice and Rhea are going to do like they did against Lauren Betts, and going to have to pin their bigs down. The other thing that concerns me is their guards. They like to dribble drive, and USC has had issues with perimeter defense and dribble drive defense, and now it's all about matchups. So it doesn't matter if you were seventh in the SEC and first in the Big Ten. It doesn't, all that's gone. It's about matchups. And USC just has not been good at defending dribble drive offenses or guards with speed. So that's my big concern.
If you had to look at, and we've done this for just about every USC game we've previewed this season, what are the one or two main statistical components you're circling as central to this game? Where if USC can hit a marker or target in this statistical category, the Trojans' chances of winning go way, way up.
We cannot turn over the ball, and their guards, now, and we need to turn them over. So both. So we can't turn over the ball, and we need to turn them over. They're as fast as their guards are. They're very sloppy with the ball. They're a team that averages a high number of turnovers per game too. I think they average like 17 turnovers a game. So if we can turn them over, that's a key metric for us. That goes in our favor. But we can't turn the ball over, and we can't foul.
Yeah, and the rust for USC, as great as that defensive performance was, first quarter USC was allowing some free throws to UNCG, so hopefully the rust wears off a little bit in that regard as well. In terms of the matchup against Mississippi State, uh, turnovers would seem to be the main thing, and more precisely, CC, live ball turnovers that allow Mississippi State to get easy baskets before
Yeah.
USC can set up its half court defense. Like that's the real thing. It's not as though you ever want to turn the ball over, but if you are going to turn it over, make it a dead ball turnover as opposed
Yeah.
to something that sets up Mississippi State's fast break. Any X factor player you're looking at for USC? You could choose Kiki off the struggle against UNCG. Maybe it's Kennedy Smith getting right at the offensive end. Maybe it's Kaylee Heckle just carrying her first round performance into round two. Maybe it's Avery Howe. Which X factor are you looking at on this USC roster?
Look, my X factor for this game, and I think people are going to be shocked, is Rhea Marshall. Rhea Marshall has got to be aggressive during this game. I mean, she did really good. She got, I think, 7 blocks against UNGC, and we're playing against taller players this game, so I'm not sure about, but I'm talking about offensively. Rhea is the X factor because as many times as they're going to leave Rhea open and sag off of her to protect the rim and be able to get the rebound, I don't care if she makes or miss. She's got to shoot the ball. You know what I mean? Because there's too many times where she's open, even around the rim, that she decides to pass it off for whatever reason. You know what I mean? And then when she passes it off, we miss the shot anyway. So if she's around the rim, she needs to shoot the ball. And if she's around that free throw line, she needs to shoot the ball so the defender will respect her. It's almost like that game when Iowa played against South Carolina and Raven Johnson or Caitlin Clark waved Raven Johnson off. It was a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and waved her off and said, Caitlin Clark said, I'm not even going to guard you because you're not worth my time. It's the same to me. It's the same thing. Players are just whatever. It's Rhea. She's not going to shoot the ball. Rhea can shoot. If she hits half of them, if she takes 6 shots and she hits 3 of them, that's better for us than if she takes 0 shots and they leave her open 6 times, right? And then the defender's going to have to come out and defend her. And in this game, it's very, very important that our bigs pull their bigs out. You know what I mean? Either, when we're running a 4 out, 1 in or whatever, we have to do something to where we pull their bigs out so the around the rim is open or the paint is open, or else it's going to be hard for us. And so a lot of that is on Rhea. Rhea is going to have to make her defender respect her by shooting the ball, or she's going to have to move.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a thing where, okay, Rhea Marshall knows she's not going to be a volume shooter, but you do have to take that free throw line elbow jumper to make the defender aware, hey, like that's not a given. You might have to come out and guard me. And of course, if she hits one of those early ones, then that's a game changer because then the defense is not just going to realize, oh, I might have to step out on her. Oh, she might actually make it. And that's going to create more urgency with the defense having to dive out to the high post. And it's going to open up driving lanes for Juju and everyone else. All right, CC.
Yeah.
So you have a lot going on at your YouTube channel, your Substack. It's March Madness. Tell everybody what you have going on your various platforms and your various multimedia offerings.
Yeah, so on YouTube, look for I just did a YouTube video, a recap video on the UNC USC game, and I talked a little bit about the Mississippi State. So look for that. It's uploading now. And then, of course, this will be on the channel as well, our wonderful podcast. I'll upload that. And I am uploading press conferences. I had to get access, so they finally gave me access. So I'm uploading press conferences to my channel as well. Um, Substack, I'm probably not going to do anything for Substack until after tomorrow's game, and then I'll do a feature on the Sweet 16 and the whole Sweet 16 in general, not this USC. And today there's practice sessions going on in LA, but I will not be there because I want to be in for. There's some really good games on today, and I want to watch those games. So, but I will be at the game tomorrow.
All right, so USC playing Mississippi State. The game is 7 o'clock local time in Los Angeles at the Galen Center. It's on ESPN Monday night, as expected, with a Saturday Monday bracket. So 7 p.m. on ESPN. Cece's going to be there, and we'll be coming at you on Tuesday after USC's second round game. We hope we will have a Sweet 16 to talk about, but we're not going to take Mississippi State for granted, and the Trojans, we hope, definitely won't do the same either. So, last word, Cece.
Yeah, just me. I just want to give shouts out to people who continuously come up to me during the games and give me a shout out and say they watch our podcast or they look at the channel. And I want to give a special shout out to the gentleman who passes out the stats during the post game press conference. He came up to me yesterday and he gave me the stat page. He's like, "I watch your YouTube, CC," and I was like, "That's awesome." So, hey, just you guys, thank you so much for supporting me. It does mean a lot. I'm very humbled by the support that you guys give me by talking about my takes and continue to share. We want to grow this channel, not just for me, but for the USC women's basketball team. So I just, I can't thank you guys enough for showing your support to what we're trying to do here on the podcast and on the YouTube channel. Let's Talk USC Women's Basketball.
So much good stuff from Cece Clay, and we will see you, Cece, after the second round. We'll talk to you on Tuesday. So thanks again for being part of the latest edition of the Trojans Wired USC Women's Basketball Podcast. We'll see you on Tuesday.
Fight on. Fight on.